Syracuse makes a solid addition to its defensive line.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fran Brown delivers a New Year's Day gift. Chris Thomas, the Marshal defensive tackle, we've talked about him before here on Locked On Syracuse earlier in December. He has committed to Syracuse per himself and 24/7 Sports' Mike McAllister. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And folks, this is a mini reaction podcast to Syracuse's most recent transfer portal edition, Marshal defensive tackle Chris Thomas. We are going to go over his role potentially with Syracuse, his stats, and how he fits with the Orange next season. But first, we're going to give a brief bio on Syracuse's latest addition. So here's what you need to know about Chris Thomas from Marshal. He is a defensive tackle, and he's got excellent size. He is 6'6", 330 pounds, and he's got one more year of college eligibility remaining. Chris Thomas was a high-end 3-star recruit in 2021 to the University of Florida. He played 2 seasons with them. I believe he redshirted his first year in 2021. But then he transferred to Marshal in 2023, and he was also with that team in 2024. By the way, Chris Thomas, he is the older brother of Syracuse 2025 commit Eric Thomas, who is also a defensive lineman. So it's very similar to last year with Fadil Diggs transferring to the Orange, and then the Orange getting his younger brother also in the portal. Chris Thomas, by the way, is the 7th portal addition for Syracuse football in this current cycle. As far as his stats and his profile, which you might be more interested in, I am here for you to give you that. Chris Thomas profiles to be a run-stuffing defensive tackle. This is not someone who is going to light up the stat sheet and put up 8-9 sacks next season. I mean, I would be pleasantly surprised if that were to happen, but he's got 1 sack in his career in college, but that's okay because he's a defensive tackle whose primary job is to stuff the run. And 2024 was a career season for Chris Thomas. So this is someone with 1 year of eligibility, but he is trending certainly in the right direction. He had 43 tackles and 1 sack. And this is huge for the Orange, by the way. They need some players who can stuff the run because that was one of the big weaknesses of Syracuse football last season. They were 13th in the ACC in rushing yards allowed per game, and they were dead last in the conference in yards allowed per carry. They let up 5 yards per rush attempt last season. That means you can hand it off to a running back twice and get a first down. That's how simple it was to run against Syracuse football from that standpoint. 5 yards a carry. Not very good, right? It's obviously not all on the defensive line. I think Syracuse didn't do a great job in the second and third levels with their tackling, which inflates the yards per carry because think about it this way. If a running back gets through the hole, let's say 4 yards past the line of scrimmage, well, then it's up to the linebackers to bring him down. And if the linebackers can't bring him down, then it's up to the secondary to bring him down. So a 4-yard gain could turn into a 30 to 40-yard gain if your tackling is not up to standard. So I cannot blame it all on the defensive line, but nevertheless, they can certainly use some more beef up front. And Chris Thomas from Marshal at 6'6", 330 pounds, I think he can provide some help for Syracuse with stuffing the run. So coming up after this, I will talk about his potential role with the Orange next season. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement was unforgettable. Now, Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature called Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets to an upcoming event using the Gametime app. With Gametime Picks, I found amazing deals and even could see the view from my seat before I was buying. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. The best part, when I won, I got paid instantly. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege. For $20 off your first purchase, terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players are going to score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I'm Jackson Holzer, and this is Locked On Syracuse. And in this mini edition of Locked On Syracuse, we are talking about Marshal defensive tackle Chris Thomas committing to Syracuse earlier this afternoon. I gave you guys a brief bio and his stats and his profile with the Orange. He seems to be someone that can really stuff the run at a high level. At least that's what he did last season at Marshal. But now it comes to the point of the podcast where we talk about the role for Chris Thomas. And it's tough to figure out where he pencils in. It really is. I'll just be completely honest with you. I don't know whether or not he's going to be a starter or a backup for their defensive tackle. So we have to understand the scheme. Syracuse, just to keep it simple, they run 4 defensive linemen. So they have 2 edge rushers and they have 2 defensive tackles, 4 down linemen. The only lock at defensive tackle, which is where Chris Thomas plays, the only lock to start, in my opinion, is Murad Watson. Murad Watson was a true freshman this past season, and 24/7 Sports named Murad Watson as a true freshman All-American. So he's really good. You can pencil him in as a starter come opening day against Tennessee next year. Actually, it's technically this year. We're in 2025 now, right? All right. After that, there's a lot of questions. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just I don't know at this point who is going to get that second defensive tackle spot. Certainly, Chris Thomas has a chance to get that spot, but he's got a lot of competition. Rashard Perry, if it's not Chris Thomas, Rashard Perry is probably the favorite out of everyone else. He started plenty of games this season. He's going to be a true junior, and he finished this past year with 17 tackles and 1.5 sacks. There's a ton of other options as well. You got Deion Tank Wilson, a New Mexico State transfer from this past season, dealt with injuries. I believe he played in the bowl games, though, so that was good. You got Isaiah Hastings. Kevin Jobity is another name to look out for because he can play edge or defensive tackle. And you also got Elijah Fuentes-Cundiff. Is he going to go into the middle as well? So overall, Chris Thomas, he's going to certainly be battling, I think, for a starting job, but by no means would I guarantee him right now that he is going to be the other defensive tackle to start alongside Murad Watson. He's going to have to battle, but at the very least, he should provide solid rotational depth for Syracuse's defensive line next season. As far as what is coming up on the podcast in the future, and we had a lot of podcasts today. This is the third one that I'm now recording today. Tomorrow, we got a full podcast. I think I'm going to now do it on Syracuse's defensive line and defense in general after the Chris Thomas transferring. So we're going to talk about, again, what the defensive line is going to look like and the rest of the defense and where else Syracuse should attack in the portal and perhaps some other targets Plus, Anwar Sparrow, a backup linebacker, returned to Syracuse from the portal. So that'll be mentioned in the podcast as well. On Friday, we got Poll Friday. How many wins for Syracuse basketball in ACC play? They're already 0-2, so I'll let you know right now. I don't think they're going to win much in the ACC. And then on Saturday, Syracuse basketball is playing Florida State. I believe that game is at 6 p.m. Eastern on the road. And there will be a full post-game reaction podcast to that. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On ACC podcast. Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs, they keep it real and bring you the truth about where your favorite ACC team stands within the conference. You can find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. If you really liked it, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast. And I will see you all again very soon.